Well, good morning. My name is Kate Zeiske. I have the great privilege of serving on a committee that oversees the state capitol ornament. The committee is made up of a number of individuals that are here today, and we're really sponsored by the State Historical Society and the foundation that you'll hear more about in its distribution of the ornament. I have the privilege to speak today, I think, because way back when, in 2004, I was able to be involved in the very first state capitol ornament. So this is the 15th year. Now, we always knew the plan was to get to the 100th anniversary of this beautiful building, and that was last year. But we never really thought, will we keep the ornament actually going? Well, thankfully, there's been such a demand of the ornament, and you'll hear about the money that's been raised, and you'll hear about how this one is going to be sold a little bit later. But we recognize that there's something really special about this Capitol. And what we saw with the last year at the 100th anniversary, the ornament depicted that 100th celebration of this magnificent building that was renovated several years ago. But what is exciting about this particular ornament this year, for me anyway, and for anyone who's spent time in the Capitol, is we're now recognizing something within the Capitol. This year's ornament is depicting a very famous statue that I'm convinced hundreds of thousands of people have actually touched. This year's ornament is going to depict the special statue, the bronze statue, that as you walk into the East Wing in the governor's office, you see this magnificent statue of our badger, our motto of our state, along with the shield from our state. And what's exciting about it is really the story that goes with that particular statue. Of course, when you have to go back 120 years ago to the idea of when the state learned that the battleship USS Wisconsin was going to be built. And we're going to talk about the specifics of that build, and commissioning with a descendant of some of the folks that were actually involved and were officials with that particular battleship. But the state was so proud, like we are in Wisconsin, of our beautiful state. They were so proud that we were going to have a battleship named after Wisconsin, that the people of Wisconsin wanted to get a gift to that battleship. And that particular statue that stands before us today in the East Wing was the gift from the people of Wisconsin. The badger took a very prominent spot, being on the battleship, the top of the battleship, and really a tribute to our state, both being a badger state and, of course, our emblem from our motto of Wisconsin being forward, and then the plow and the anchor that we're so well known for all of our sea and waterways. So what an exciting tribute of this year, of 120 years later, that we actually can take that statue and have it be offer it to all of Wisconsin as an ornament for one's personal tree. But what I think is interesting with that particular statue I mentioned that many people have touched is, for those of you that are from the Capitol, you know that this statue that served on the front of the ship for many years, people will rub its nose for a good luck charm. And what we realized, that all the soldiers that in the early 1900s that were able to serve on that particular battleship, before they would go to shore or before they went into battle, they in fact rubbed that very nose for good luck. So the tradition continues here in Wisconsin. But what a rich history that this statue has. Not only was it in a prominent role on the very first USS Wisconsin, but the interesting thing about it is, well, how did we get it back here, right? And the story goes, it's connected, of course, with being hosted on the very first USS Wisconsin, But it was actually after the USS Wisconsin was decommissioned, the statue was removed from the battleship, and that particular statue was then had been moved several locations. Well, fast forward to 1987, when Governor Thompson wanted to promote, much like the former Governor Upham, the first USS Wisconsin, Governor Thompson wanted to promote the second USS Wisconsin being recommissioned in 1987. So he set an executive order and asked all of Wisconsinites to celebrate the USS Wisconsin recommissioning. And he learned about that there's a statue somewhere from that very first one. He learned that that statue was actually created from the Spanish-American War. They took the melting down of the cannons that were used in the Spanish-American War that were in Cuba. They melted it down, and that's how they created the statue. He said, we have to find the statue, as only Governor Thompson can do. And they actually found it. One of his staffers was at the Naval Academy, and sure enough, they found this very statue in the formal garden sitting outside at the superintendent's home at the Naval Academy in Annapolis. So he, of course, got very excited, contacted the Navy and said, we want that back here. And the Navy said, well, we actually own that. And the governor and the State Historical Society got together and said, you know, we do have something the U.S. the U.S. Navy might like. We have the original silver service setting, a 35-piece setting of silver, tea set, coffee and tea set. We actually have that. We could trade the U.S. Navy the service set, the silver service set, for the Badger, and that's in fact what was done. But it gets a little more complicated than that. The U.S. Navy wasn't quite willing to just sort of do a even-steven trade. So in fact, they every year the State Historical Society must renew their request to have the statue on loan here at our state capitol. So it has a very rich history of how the statue came to our beautiful Capitol, how it's in a prominent role outside the governor's office, how children learn about it as they walk into the governor's office on the tour and they rub its nose for good luck. But little did we know of all the interest and the intricacies of the first USS Wisconsin battleship, the second USS Wisconsin battleship. And with us today, I'm very honored to say that we have the descendant of one of the folks who had a very prominent role with the commissioning of the first USS Wisconsin battleship. It was a BB-9. U.S. Senator Isaac Stevenson from Marinette. It was his daughter, Emily, who was eligible to participate, and we have the descendant, Tom Stevenson, with us today, who's going to tell us a little bit about his family's involvement with that very important commissioning of the USS Wisconsin battleship. Steve, would you be willing to, or Tom, would you be willing to come and thank you?
Good morning, folks. It's a privilege to first and foremost thank the Marinette Historical Society and the Wisconsin Society regarding this situation here with the ornaments. I knew nothing about the state ever giving out ornaments. I always realized they had given out or set up a tree, as with the Packers, and any prominent town has a big Christmas tree. With that said, I will introduce myself, and my wife Kathy is sitting in the audience. My name is really Thomas Merritt Stevenson, and my great-grandfather, two removed, was Isaac Stevenson. Now, he was the father of Isaac Stevenson, who had the daughter, which we called Lizzie, and he is the one that is noted in all the annals of Wisconsin regarding anything historical at that time. He was number one hitter. When I walked in the building this morning, I saw a bust of La Follette sitting there, And I know he basically, with all his grandeur, was able to get this La Follette into office back then. Other than that, as far as being a Stevenson, there isn't very many of us left. I found out that I was the only one left in the state, and there are only 2 or 3 left in the U.S. that have our lineage. And I've read in my older days, when I retired, about Isaac Stevenson. I read when I was younger the book Recollections of a Long Life. Then I got interested in looking at what all the people that were in the cemeteries and found out that he had several brothers. I knew this too, but that were very prominent. Samuel Merritt Stevenson was one of them, his brother. And I also knew that he had 3 wives. So that started me off on a quest to wonder about the 3 wives. How could this rich man have so many wives, and why did he have so many wives? In consequence, they all died, the first 2, with childbirth. And then I started piquing my interest and got into Ancestry.com. You've heard of that. So we have some memorabilia in our family. I have a grandfather clock that I am now winding, and it's only given to the older generation, and you're at the end of your winder when you get there. So I have that, and I don't have any interest with my brother's son in having it. So that's one of the issues that I have to find a place for. I also have a couple of game tables and things from that era. But in essence, I know only what I've read and about this christening, and I know that he went out to San Diego, and I know it was a dreadnought type ship that was built back in 1898, and I believe it went into service in 1902. And I do also know that Lizzie wound up not being buried with her husband, but buried in the tomb of Isaac Stevenson. So that was something that was interesting to me. And there's a lot of things interesting about the Stevenson family because it was all written down. So it's not something that I would say I adventured out and did. It's just that everything is there. If you want to read it, that's where it is. So I think I've said enough, and I'm honored to be here again, and I'll return the table back to whoever.
Thank you, Tom. My name's Dave Wilder. I'm the Executive Director of the Wisconsin Historical Foundation. Thank you all for coming today. I'm here on behalf of the Society and the Foundation to once again say how proud we are to be part of the Capital Ornament Project and supporting the Capital Restoration Fund. This year, I'd like to particularly thank the efforts of Gwen Gunther, Cindy Block, and Kate Pavich, their special efforts on the Ornament Committee putting this year's ornament together. I'd also like in particular to thank Fincanterri Marine for sponsoring this year's ornament. From Marinette, they are a great company in the state, and we're very happy that they chose to provide funds to help promote the ornament this year. So thank you very much to them. I'll conclude simply by saying that you can purchase this year's ornament at the Monona Terrace, Orange Tree Imports, State Capitol Tours, the Bruce Company, the Madison Museum of Contemporary Art, the Executive Residence, the Wisconsin Historical Museum on the Capitol Square, and online at wisconsinhistory.org/Capitol Ornament. So with that, thank you very much. And if I could have Kate assist me with unveiling the ornament. Sure.
And for the real thing, right, we can turn it around.
Okay. Thank you all very much.